Premier Honorable Ralph O'Neill has confirmed the legitimacy of the letter from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which has generated more controversy regarding the Bywater water purchase agreement. The letter states that the Bywater contract is a contingent liability for the BVI government. JTV News' Walter Barrett reports on the latest developments, including the Premier's statement during VIP radio program.
The controversy began during the last sitting of the House when Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Orlando Smith, asked whether or not the Premier and Minister for Finance, Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill, had in fact received a letter from the FCO and if he could share with the House the details of the letter. The Premier, however, failed to answer the question, stating that under the rules of the House he was opting not to answer. Much talk was generated as a result of the Premier's silence, and he was highly criticized by talk show hosts and residents for what they said was disrespect, as the Premier refused to address an issue that was of importance to the people of the territory. On Monday evening, the Premier spoke out on VIP Radio's Let's Talk, reading a prepared statement in which he came to his own defense regarding the matter. According to the Premier, the House was summoned for the 5th sitting of the House on Thursday, February 17th, and the opposition leader had some 26 questions prepared on the draft order of the day, 6 of which were for the Premier. Honorable O'Neill said that the order paper was approved and circulated to the members of the House. The Premier then stated that between the date of the summons to the meeting and February 16th, he began hearing rumours that a letter from the FCO was in the possession of 4 individuals, 2 of whom were members of the House of Assembly. The Premier's argument was that when the letter arrived in the territory from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, he was not in the territory but was in fact in London, meeting with the FCO director about matters that excluded the Bywater contract. However, he did mention that Governor Boyd McCleary had received the letter and had instructed Permanent Secretary in the Premier's office, Rosalie Adams, to get a copy of the letter to the Premier before he met with the director in London. The Premier, however, denied having received such a letter, although according to Adams, it was faxed to the Premier and a copy was delivered to the Deputy Premier, Honourable Dancia Penn, through her secretary. The Premier went on to say that the big question to him is how a letter sent to the Premier by diplomatic mail ended up in the hands of other people.
I returned from England on 19th of November 2010. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the big question is how could a letter sent by diplomatic mail to the Premier and then dispatched by the Governor to the Permanent Secretary with instructions that she must get the letter to the Premier by a certain date and end up in the hands of other people.
Premier O'Neill said that since he did not get a satisfactory response from the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's office, Rosalie Adams, regarding why the letter did not reach him in time, he was requesting that the Governor launch a commission of inquiry into the letter. However, while addressing the territory, the Premier did not speak about the contents of the letter and said nothing about the Bywater contract being a contingent liability for the BVI. No mention was made either of whether or not the Bywater contract is in fact still valid, since the request of the FCO to include the contingent liability and have it reflected in the 2011 budget was not done. Speaking on Tuesday evening's episode of JTV's talk show Spotlight was Cromwell Smith, who explained that the Premier had written to the FCO to find out if the Bywater contract was in fact presenting a contingent liability. The letter, which the Premier said he did not receive until after the sitting of the House, was a response from the FCO director confirming that the Bywater contract was in fact presenting such a contingent liability. Furthermore, Smith contended that when the Premier returned to the BVI, there was enough time for him to inquire about the letter and be prepared enough to address it during the sitting of the House on February 17th. Smith also said that the call for the Commission of Inquiry is a diversion from the real issues regarding the Bywater contract.
I hear the Premier's claim, and I hear his call for an investigation. But to me, it's just a diversion from the real issues. Because no matter how you slice it, no matter if he never saw the letter at all, and he only heard about it in the from the order paper for the House of Assembly, he still had at least 4 days, and usually it's 4 to 7 days those questions have to be submitted. So he had at least 4 days where he could have called the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, gotten it resent by diplomatic mail, if he didn't trust the email, if he didn't trust the fax, there is absolutely no reason why he shouldn't have known what was in the letter.
In a recent edition of the BVI Beacon online, Rosalie Adams, in a phone interview with the Beacon, said she followed proper procedure. According to the Permanent Secretary, she faxed a copy of the letter to the BVI London office since the Premier was in that city, and she handed a copy to Deputy Premier Dancia Pence's secretary. However, she was since notified that Honourable Pence said she never received such a letter. Unconfirmed reports have also stated that Adams has since tendered in a letter of resignation, but JTV News' attempts to reach the Permanent Secretary on the matter were unsuccessful. This is Walter Barrett for JTV News.